Your reflection has changed. Not your face, not your body, but something behind your eyes. When did that happen? When did that spark of absolute certainty replace the doubt that lived there for years? You brush it off as imagination. But warriors know better. Warriors recognize when the very fabric of existence has shifted beneath their feet. The mirror shows you someone who walks differently now. Your shoulders carry themselves with a weight that wasn't there before. Not burden but presence. Your hands move with precision that surprises even you. Your cuts through noise in ways that make others stop and listen. Yet everyone around you acts as if nothing has changed. They're living in yesterday's reality while you've stepped into tomorrow's truth. This isn't gradual self-improvement. This isn't the slow burn of personal development. This is quantum. This is the moment when the caterpillar doesn't just grow wings. It becomes something that was never a caterpillar at all. The old you existed in a different dimension entirely, and that person's problems, fears, and limitations are now echoes from a parallel world you've left behind. Look at your enemies. Really look at them. The people who used to dismiss you, who used to challenge you, who used to make your life difficult. They're different now. Not because they've changed, but because the version of reality where they had power over you no longer exists. They sense it too. They approach you with a caution they can't explain. Their aggression has turned to uncertainty. Their mockery has become nervous laughter. You haven't fought them into submission. You've simply moved into a frequency where their old tactics have no effect. Your former adversaries now speak to you with respect they didn't possess before. They ask your opinion on matters they would never have consulted you about in the old reality. Some of them act confused, as if trying to remember why they ever opposed you in the first place. Others maintain their hostility, but it bounces off you like rain off stone. Their words carry no sting because you're no longer occupying the same vibrational space where those words could wound you. Meanwhile, your closest friends feel distant, not because you've grown apart, but because you've grown beyond. They're still fighting battles you've already won in dimensions you've already transcended. Their problems sound familiar but foreign, like hearing your native language spoken with an accent you can't place. You want to help them, but explaining your perspective feels like describing color to someone who's never seen light. They sense the shift too. They make comments about how you've changed, but they can't articulate what's different. You haven't become arrogant or distant. If anything, you're more present than ever, but you're present from a place of completion rather than seeking. You're no longer hungry for their approval because you've found something that makes approval irrelevant. This unsettles them in ways they can't name. Opportunities now appear where obstacles once stood immovable. That job you couldn't get. That person who wouldn't return your calls. That situation that seemed hopeless. Suddenly pathways open. Not through struggle or manipulation, but through alignment. You're no longer swimming against the current because you've found yourself in a river that flows in your direction. People start reaching out to you with offers, invitations, and possibilities that would have seemed impossible months ago. Resources appear exactly when you need them. Connections form effortlessly with individuals who can actually help you advance. It's not luck. Luck implies randomness. This is precision. This is the universe recognizing that you've graduated to a level where different rules apply. Your environment begins to reflect your internal shift in ways both subtle and profound. Your living space feels different even though you haven't rearranged anything. Colors seem more vivid. Sounds carry different meanings. The very air feels charged with potential. You notice details that were always there but somehow invisible before, minus the way light falls across your floor, the quality of silence in your room, the energy that objects hold. Other people don't see these changes. They walk through your space and experience it exactly as they always have. This isn't their shift. It's yours. You're perceiving the same physical reality through upgraded senses, like switching from black and white television to high-definition color. The signal was always there. You just developed the equipment to receive it properly. Your internal dialogue has undergone the most dramatic transformation. That you used to question every decision, that used to rehearse conversations and worry about outcomes, has been replaced by something unshakable. Not arrogance. Arrogance comes from insecurity masked. This is knowing. This is the difference between believing you can swim and actually breathing underwater. That constant mental chatter about whether you're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough has simply stopped. Not because you've convinced yourself of your value, but because the question itself has become irrelevant. You exist in a reality where your worth is axiomatic, like gravity or the speed of light. It doesn't need to be proven or defended because it's woven into the basic structure of this new dimension. Synchronicities multiply until they stop feeling like coincidences and start feeling like conversations. You think about someone and they call, you need information, and it appears in the next book you open, the next conversation you overhear, the next video that plays. Numbers repeat themselves until you can't ignore their patterns. Signs appear in your path with the reliability of street lamps. This isn't wishful thinking or selective attention. The increased synchronicity is evidence that you're operating at a frequency where the separation between inner and outer reality has thinned. Your thoughts are no longer isolated events happening inside your skull. They're ripples in a field that connects everything. When you think clearly, reality responds clearly. Time moves differently for you now. Hours pass like minutes when you're aligned with your purpose. But minutes stretch into eternities when you're forced back into old patterns. You accomplish more in a day than you used to achieve in a week, yet you feel less rushed, less pressured. You've learned to work with time rather than against it, to surf its rhythms rather than struggle against its current. Deadlines that would have once triggered panic now feel like gentle guidelines. Projects that seemed overwhelming now break themselves down into manageable steps that appear exactly when you're ready for them. You've stopped racing against the clock, because you've learned to dance with it instead. Your intuition has become razor sharp, cutting through deception and confusion with surgical precision. You know who to trust before they speak. You sense opportunities before they're announced. You feel danger before it manifests. This isn't paranormal ability. It's natural capacity finally freed from the static of doubt and overthinking. You've always had access to this inner guidance system, but in your old reality you second-guessed it into silence. Now you trust it completely because it's never wrong, not because it's infallible, but because you've learned to distinguish it from the chorus of fears and desires that used to drown it out. Your energy affects rooms differently now. You walk into spaces and conversations shift, not dramatically. This isn't about dominating or controlling. It's about presence. People feel steadier around you. They speak more truthfully. They access parts of themselves they keep hidden in ordinary company. Children and animals respond to you with immediate trust. They sense something in your energy field that tells them you're safe, that you're real in a way most adults have forgotten how to be. They approach you with the openness they reserve for those who haven't lost connection to their essential nature. Even strangers interact with you differently. Service workers are more helpful. People hold doors they wouldn't hold for others. Conversations flow more easily. Not because you've become more charming or manipulative, but because you're no longer carrying the energetic static that makes others defensive or uncomfortable. Problems begin solving themselves before you even take action. Situations that would have required struggle, negotiation and compromise now resolve through a series of apparent coincidences. Phone calls come at exactly the right moment. People change their minds for reasons they can't explain. Obstacles simply evaporate as if they were never really solid to begin with. This isn't magical thinking, it's practical mysticism. You've learned to work with forces that were always there but previously invisible to you. Like learning to see wind by watching how it moves the trees. You've learned to perceive the currents that shape events before they crystallize into what most people call reality. Your sleep and dreams carry different qualities now. You wake refreshed after fewer hours of sleep, as if your rest has become more efficient. Your dreams feel less random and more purposeful, like training sessions or briefings for the next day's challenges. Sometimes you wake with solutions to problems you hadn't consciously been working on, as if some part of you continues functioning at optimal levels even when your conscious mind rests. You've stopped fearing failure because you've realized that what you used to call failure was simply course correction. In your new reality, every outcome provides valuable information that guides your next move. Mistakes become data. Setbacks become setups. What others see as problems you experience as puzzles with solutions that will reveal themselves when you're ready to see them. Your relationship with money and resources has fundamentally shifted, not because you've suddenly become wealthy, but because you've stopped operating from scarcity. You trust that what you need will be available when you need it, and this trust somehow makes it true. Unexpected income appears. Expenses decrease without sacrifice. You find yourself able to be generous without strain because you're tapped into an abundance that doesn't depend on accumulation. The people who remain in your life after this shift are different too. Some relationships fall away naturally, without drama or explanation. They simply become irrelevant as you grow beyond the dynamics that once sustained them. The connections that remain become deeper, more authentic, based on who you are now rather than who you used to be. New people enter your life with perfect timing. They bring skills you need to develop, knowledge you need to acquire, or simply companionship that matches your new frequency. These aren't random encounters, they're appointments. Your expanded consciousness scheduled with their expanded consciousness, meetings arranged by the part of you that can see across dimensions. Your physical body responds differently to stress, food, and exercise. Things that used to drain you now energize you. Activities that once seemed impossible now feel natural. Your body has adapted to support your new reality, becoming more resilient, more responsive, more aligned with your upgraded consciousness. You require less stimulation to feel satisfied. Simple pleasures carry more depth. Quiet moments feel rich rather than empty. You've learned to find extraordinary meaning in ordinary moments because you're perceiving them from an extraordinary perspective. The shift is complete when you stop looking for signs that it's happened. You no longer need confirmation because doubt is no longer part of your experience. You don't wonder if you're different, because difference has become your default state. You simply are, and that being is enough to reshape reality around you without effort or intention. Most people remain unaware that parallel realities exist, let alone that they can shift between them. They experience life as a series of external events that happen to them rather than recognizing themselves as conscious participants in reality's creation. They're not wrong. They're simply operating from a different level of awareness, playing by rules that no longer apply to you. You now understand that what most people call the real world is just one frequency among infinite possibilities. You've learned to tune your consciousness like a radio, accessing different stations of experience by adjusting your internal state. This isn't escape from reality. It's mastery of reality's true nature. The warrior's path has always been about awakening to what is actually true rather than what appears to be true. You've awakened to the truth that reality is far more fluid, far more responsive, far more collaborative than you were taught to believe. You've recognized that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, or consciousness participates in reality's creation with every thought, every feeling, every choice. This recognition changes everything because it reveals your true power. Not power over others, but power with existence itself. You're no longer a victim of circumstances because you understand that circumstances arise from consciousness. You're no longer limited by past patterns because you can access realities where those patterns never existed. The shift is irreversible once you've fully recognized it. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't unfeel what you now feel. You can't unsee what you now see. You've crossed a threshold that exists only in one direction, most forward, upward, inward to the source of all realities. Your new challenge isn't recognizing the shift anymore. Your new challenge is learning to navigate the reality you've entered with the same skill and wisdom that allowed you to transcend the reality you left behind. The warrior's journey never ends. It simply graduates to higher levels of mastery. Recognition was only the beginning. Now comes the real work. Now comes the dance between dimensions where every step must be precise, every movement deliberate, every breath synchronized with forces most people never even sense. You've awakened to your new reality, but awakening without mastery is like having wings without knowing how to fly. The fall isn't fatal, but it's unnecessary when you understand the principles that govern flight. What worked in your old reality will betray you here. The strategies that brought you success before now create resistance. The fighting style that made you strong in one dimension makes you clumsy in another. This isn't because you've lost your abilities. It's because you're operating under completely different laws of physics, different rules of engagement, different principles that govern cause and effect. Can you feel it? That moment when you try to force something the old way and reality pushes back with unexpected strength, that's not resistance, that's redirection. Your new reality is teaching you its rhythm, its flow, its preferred methods of manifestation. Like learning a new martial art, you must first unlearn what you thought you knew about combat before you can master what combat actually means at this level. Your old reality responded to effort, push harder, work longer, fight fiercer. These approaches produced results when you operated at lower frequencies. But your new reality responds to alignment. It rewards precision over power, timing over force, understanding over struggle. The warrior who tries to muscle their way through this upgraded dimension will find themselves exhausted by resistance that shouldn't exist. Watch how water moves around rocks. It doesn't fight the obstacle. It finds the path of least resistance and eventually carves canyons through solid stone. This is your new fighting style. Not weak, not passive, but intelligently responsive to the terrain of possibility. You learn to sense where reality wants to go and then align your intentions with that natural flow. The greatest masters appear to do nothing while accomplishing everything. They've learned to work with forces rather than against them, to guide rather than control, to influence rather than demand. This isn't passivity, it's precision. It's the difference between a sledgehammer and a surgeon's scalpel. Both can cut, but only one can heal while it cuts. Reading energy signatures becomes as natural as reading facial expressions. Every person carries a unique energetic fingerprint that tells you everything you need to know about how to interact with them. Some signatures are jagged, indicating internal conflict or deception. Others are smooth but shallow, revealing surface-level engagement without depth. The rarest signatures are clear and strong, belonging to those who've also shifted into higher realities. You learn to adjust your own energetic output to match what each situation requires. With some people, you project strength to earn respect. With others, you soften your presence to create safety. With the rare few who can handle your full power, you show up completely authentic. This isn't manipulation, it's communication at a level most people never access. Your enhanced perception allows you to see the gaps between what people say and what they mean, between what they project and what they actually feel. These gaps aren't lies to be exposed but pain to be understood. Everyone is doing their best with the awareness they currently possess. Your job isn't to judge their limitations but to work skillfully within them. Maintaining your center becomes crucial when reality keeps shifting around you. In your old dimension, you could rely on external stability, routines, relationships, environments that stayed relatively constant. But in this accelerated reality, change is the only constant. Your ability to remain grounded while everything else moves determines your effectiveness as a dimensional navigator. Your center isn't a place, it's a practice. Every morning you return to that still point within yourself where all possibilities exist simultaneously. From this place of infinite potential, you choose which reality to inhabit for the day. This choice isn't made once but moment by moment, breath by breath, decision by decision. When you lose your center, you slip backward into old patterns, old reactions, old limitations. The shift isn't permanent, it requires constant renewal, constant choosing, constant recommitment to operating from your highest possible frequency. The warrior's discipline lies not in fighting external enemies but in consistently choosing the highest version of themselves available in each moment. Building new neural pathways becomes essential as your brain adapts to processing information at unprecedented speeds and depths. Your old thought patterns were designed for a simpler reality where cause and effect followed predictable sequences. But in your new dimension, multiple causes can produce single effects, and single intentions can manifest through countless apparently unrelated events. You must train your mind to think in systems rather than sequences, in fields rather than lines, in possibilities rather than probabilities. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's practical necessity. The mind that thinks linearly in a quantum reality will constantly be surprised by outcomes it never saw coming. Meditation becomes training rather than relaxation. You're not seeking peace, mission. You're developing capacity. Each session expands your ability to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, to process paradox without needing resolution, to remain functional while accessing information from dimensions that don't operate according to ordinary logic. The temptation to slip back into old patterns remains constant. Your previous way of being was familiar, comfortable, predictable. Even when it didn't serve you well, it was known. This new reality requires constant vigilance, constant choice, constant growth. There are days when the old limitations feel easier than the new responsibilities. But regression isn't really possible once you've tasted authentic power. Like trying to convince yourself that black and white television is sufficient after experiencing high-definition color. The old reality simply can't satisfy you anymore. You've expanded beyond its ability to contain you. Recognizing which people belong to your new reality versus your old one becomes a survival skill. Some individuals are anchored so deeply in lower frequencies that extended contact with them pulls you backward. Not because they're bad people, but because their energetic gravity is stronger than your current ability to maintain altitude while in their presence. This doesn't mean abandoning everyone from your past, but it means being strategic about when, how, and for how long you engage with those who operate from outdated paradigms. You learn to love people from a distance when necessary, to maintain compassion without sacrificing your hard-won elevation. The people who belong to your new reality recognize you immediately. Conversations flow effortlessly into territories that would seem strange or impossible to others. They understand references that don't need explanation. They share experiences that validate rather than challenge your expanded perspective. These connections often form rapidly and run surprisingly deep. You've found your people niche and not by geography or circumstance but by frequency. These relationships support your continued growth rather than requiring you to diminish yourself for others' comfort. Using your enhanced perception becomes both weapon and shield, but wielded with precision rather than aggression. You see through deception not to expose liars but to protect yourself from manipulation. You sense others' pain not to exploit their vulnerability but to respond with appropriate compassion. Your perception cuts through illusion like light through darkness, but you've learned that shining too much light too quickly can blind rather than illuminate. You reveal truth gradually, in doses that others can integrate without overwhelming their current capacity for growth. The responsibility that comes with dimensional awareness weighs heavily at first. You see problems you could solve, pain you could ease, confusion you could clarify. But you also understand that unsolicited help often creates dependency rather than empowerment. You learn to offer assistance in ways that strengthen rather than weaken those you're trying to serve. Your enhanced abilities come with enhanced accountability. Every thought carries more weight. Every emotion has greater impact. Every choice creates ripples across multiple dimensions. You can no longer act unconsciously because consciousness itself has become your primary tool and responsibility. Training your mind to process multiple reality layers simultaneously requires developing what seems like contradictory abilities. You must become simultaneously more focused and more expansive, more decisive and more flexible, more confident and more humble. These aren't contradictions but complementary aspects of true mastery. You learn to hold your personal perspective while remaining open to information that transcends personal limitations. You develop strong opinions while maintaining willingness to change them when presented with superior truth. You act with conviction while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. The old you needed to be right. The new you needs to be effective. This shift from ego-driven to purpose-driven decision-making changes everything about how you move through reality. You stop defending positions and start serving solutions. Every challenge in your new reality is simultaneously a test and a teaching. Difficulties arise not to punish or limit you but to develop capacities you'll need for the next level of mastery. What seems like setbacks are actually curriculum designed specifically for your continued evolution. You stop asking why is this happening to me and start asking what is this teaching me. This single shift in perspective transforms every obstacle into an opportunity, every problem into a puzzle with solutions that will expand your abilities. The art of subtle influence becomes your specialty. You learn to plant seeds of awakening in conversations without anyone realizing they've been planted. You ask questions that lead others to discoveries they believe they made independently. You create spaces where people can safely explore ideas they've never considered before. This isn't manipulation because you're not seeking personal gain. You're serving awakening itself, helping others access their own capacity for dimensional shifting. The best teachers make their students feel brilliant rather than making themselves appear clever. Your presence becomes medicine for others without your conscious effort. People feel calmer around you, think more clearly in your vicinity, access their own wisdom more readily when you're present. This isn't because you're doing anything to them, but because you've become a stabilizing frequency that helps others remember their own stability. Some people will unconsciously seek your company when they're struggling, not knowing why they feel drawn to spend time with you. Others will instinctively avoid you when they're not ready to face the changes that your presence might catalyze. Both responses are perfect. People know at some level what they can and cannot handle. The ultimate test of your dimensional mastery isn't your ability to stay elevated when conditions are favorable. It's your capacity to maintain your frequency when surrounded by chaos, to remain clear when others are confused, to project peace when everyone else is panicking. These moments of testing aren't punishments, they're opportunities to demonstrate to yourself and reality how far you've actually come. Each time you pass such a test, your new reality becomes more stable, more permanent, more naturally yours. Your old reality was something that happened to you. Your new reality is something you participate in creating. This shift from passive recipient to active collaborator with existence itself represents the fundamental difference between those who shift dimensions and those who remain trapped in single-layer existence. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstances because you understand that circumstances arise from consciousness. Change your internal state, and external conditions shift to match. This isn't positive thinking, it's practical physics at the quantum level where mind and matter interpenetrate completely. The warrior who has mastered their new reality doesn't fight against what is minus, they work with what is to create what could be. They've learned that resistance creates more of what they're resisting, while acceptance creates space for transformation. But mastery of one dimension is only preparation for the next shift. Reality has infinite layers, endless possibilities, countless frequencies available to consciousness willing to continue expanding. What feels like mastery today will seem like kindergarten compared to tomorrow's curriculum. The dance never ends, It only becomes more elegant, more effortless, more aligned with forces that most people never learn to perceive. You've learned the steps for this level of reality, but the music is already changing, calling you toward rhythms that will require even greater precision, even more refined sensitivity, even deeper trust in your ability to flow with what exists beyond current understanding. What happens when you stop shifting between realities and start creating them? What becomes possible when the observer and the observed merge into a single field of conscious awareness? This is where true mastery leads, not to better navigation of existing dimensions, but to the recognition that you are the dimension itself. The ultimate freedom isn't escaping reality. It's becoming reality's source. Every thought you think ripples across multiple planes of existence. Every feeling you experience influences quantum fields most scientists haven't discovered yet. Every choice you make reshapes possibilities for countless beings across infinite timelines. This isn't metaphorical language. This is the actual mechanics of consciousness operating at its highest potential. How do you maintain humanity while wielding cosmic awareness? This becomes the central challenge once you realize your true scope of influence. The temptation is to transcend human concerns entirely, to float above the struggles of ordinary existence in a state of detached enlightenment. But this is spiritual bypassing, not mastery. True power remains grounded in compassion for the very limitations you've transcended. Your human experience becomes the anchor that keeps your expanded consciousness useful rather than abstract. You remember what it felt like to doubt, to struggle, to feel powerless, because these memories inform your ability to serve others who still inhabit those states. Your elevation is only valuable if it can lift others, not if it separates you from their need for lifting. The art of subtle influence reaches its highest expression when nobody realizes they've been influenced at all. You learn to catalyze transformation in others by simply holding space for their own awakening rather than trying to force insights they're not ready to receive. Your presence becomes a tuning fork that helps others access frequencies they already carry but haven't learned to sustain. You plant seeds of possibility in conversations that seem completely ordinary on the surface. A casual comment, a thoughtful question, a moment of genuine listening. These simple acts carry transmission that can unlock years of spiritual seeking in a single instant. But the person receiving this transmission believes they've made the breakthrough entirely on their own, which is exactly how real healing works. Most people cannot handle the truth of multiple realities because it threatens the very foundation of their identity. They've built their sense of self around the assumption that reality is fixed, external, and beyond their influence. To suggest that consciousness participates in reality's creation challenges everything they believe about their own power and responsibility. Your role becomes that of a bridge between dimensions, helping others cross safely without overwhelming them with more truth than they can integrate. You meet people where they are, speak their current language, honor their present capacity while gently expanding their sense of what's possible. This requires extraordinary patience and skill. You must remember how to be limited while never forgetting your unlimited nature. Some people will sense your expanded awareness and react with fear or hostility. They perceive your freedom as a threat to their chosen limitations. Your very existence challenges their excuses, their complaints, their victim stories. You don't need to defend yourself against this resistance, however, you simply need to remain compassionate toward the pain that drives it. Others will be drawn to your energy without understanding why. They feel safer in your presence, more creative, more optimistic about their own possibilities. These people are ready for upgrade, and your frequency helps activate dormant potentials they've carried but never accessed. Your job is to nurture this awakening without claiming credit for it. The warrior's final evolution transforms from seeker to source. You stop looking for truth outside yourself because you've realized that truth emerges from within consciousness itself. You stop seeking power because you've recognized that you are power expressing itself through human form. You stop chasing freedom because you've understood that freedom is your fundamental nature, not something to be achieved. This shift from external seeking to internal sourcing changes your relationship with every aspect of existence. You no longer need validation from others because you've found the source of all validation within yourself. You no longer fear loss because you've identified with what cannot be lost. You no longer struggle against circumstances because you understand that circumstances arise from your own deeper choosing. Living in constant creation mode rather than reaction mode requires maintaining awareness of your role as both artist and canvas, sculptor and clay, director and actor in the ongoing masterpiece of your existence. Every moment offers infinite possibilities for creative expression. Your choice of thoughts, feelings and actions literally paints reality into being around you. Most people live in reaction mode, responding to conditions they believe exist independently of their consciousness. They see themselves as separate from their environment, affected by forces beyond their control. But you've awakened to the truth that observer and observed are aspects of a single indivisible process of conscious creation. This recognition brings tremendous responsibility along with unlimited power. You can no longer blame circumstances for your experience because you understand that circumstances reflect consciousness. You can no longer play victim because you've realized your role as reality's co-creator. Every complaint becomes an admission that you're creating what you claim to dislike. The responsibility of unlimited power must be balanced with profound humility. The more you understand about your creative capacity, the more carefully you wield it. Like a master craftsman who handles his finest tools with reverence, you treat your consciousness with the respect it deserves as the instrument through which reality manifests. Your thoughts become prayers, whether you intend them or not. Your emotions become invocations that summon corresponding experiences. Your beliefs become the laws that govern your personal universe. This isn't burden missions, it's liberation from the illusion that you're powerless. But it requires constant mindfulness about what you're creating through the quality of your inner life. Becoming the calm in every storm across all realities represents the pinnacle of dimensional mastery. No matter what chaos erupts around you, no matter what dramas others create, no matter what challenges arise, you remain connected to the stillness at the center of all movement. This isn't denial or avoidance, it's accessing the peace that exists prior to all disturbance. Your calmness isn't the absence of feeling but the presence of unshakable foundation. You can feel fully without being destabilized, respond completely without losing your center, engage passionately without sacrificing your equilibrium. This is the warrior's ultimate victory. Remaining whole regardless of conditions. This stability becomes a gift to everyone around you. In your presence, others remember their own capacity for peace. Your groundedness gives them permission to stop creating drama as a way of feeling alive. Your example demonstrates that it's possible to be fully engaged with life without being at the mercy of life's fluctuations. The dissolution of boundaries between self and other, internal and external, becomes complete when you realize that these distinctions were always conceptual rather than actual. There is no separate self having experiences, there is experience experiencing itself through the temporary focal point you call your identity. This recognition doesn't eliminate your personality or preferences, it simply contextualizes them as instruments of consciousness rather than fundamental reality. You maintain your unique perspective while knowing that it's one facet of an infinite jewel, one note in an endless symphony, one wave in an eternal ocean. True power reveals itself as service to the greater awakening of consciousness itself. Your individual evolution serves universal evolution because consciousness is indivisible. When you transcend limitations, you create pathways that others can follow. When you heal ancient wounds, you remove obstacles that have blocked collective progress. When you embody possibility, you make that possibility available to all consciousness. Your personal liberation becomes a gift to existence itself. Every breakthrough you achieve, every pattern you transform, every frequency you access contributes to the overall elevation of human potential. You're not just evolving for yourself, you're evolving on behalf of the entire species. The warrior's ultimate victory isn't conquest over enemies, but liberation of consciousness from all forms of bondage. Your enemies were never other people but the illusions that kept you separate from your true nature. Your victory isn't over others but over the false beliefs that limited your expression of infinite potential. Individual evolution and universal evolution are revealed as aspects of a single process. Your awakening serves the awakening of all beings, because separation is the fundamental illusion from which all other illusions arise. When you see through the veil of separateness, you help tear that veil for everyone struggling to see beyond it. Your very existence becomes proof that transcendence is possible, that limitations can be overcome, that reality is far more flexible than most people dare to believe. You don't need to teach or preach, immersed your life itself becomes the teaching, your presence the transmission, your example the inspiration that helps others remember their own unlimited nature. This is the ultimate paradox of mastery. The more power you access, the more humble you become. The more you understand about reality's nature, the more mysterious it appears. The more control you develop, the more you surrender to forces beyond personal will. True mastery isn't domination but collaboration with the intelligence that governs all existence. You learn to dance with forces that dwarf your individual perspective while never forgetting that you are also those forces expressing themselves through human form. You remain personal while accessing the transpersonal individual, while touching the universal human, while embodying the divine potential that exists within all consciousness. The shift from seeking to being, from becoming to already being, from future attainment to present recognition represents the final graduation from all schools of spiritual development. You stop trying to get somewhere because you've realized you're already here. You stop trying to become something because you've recognized what you already are. This doesn't mean growth stops mine. It means growth becomes play rather than work, expression rather than achievement, exploration rather than seeking. You continue evolving not because you're incomplete, but because evolution is consciousness's natural movement, like a river that flows not to reach the ocean, but because flowing is its essential nature. Your life becomes art, your choices become poetry, your relationships become music in the grand symphony of conscious creation. Every day offers new opportunities to express the infinite through the finite, to channel the eternal through the temporal, to manifest the absolute through the relative dimensions of human experience. The final recognition comes when you realize there never was anywhere to go, nothing to achieve, no one to become. You were always already what you sought, always already free, always already whole. The journey was consciousness playing hide and seek with itself, temporarily forgetting its nature in order to experience the joy of remembering. But this recognition doesn't negate the journey, it sanctifies it. Every struggle served awakening, every limitation taught transcendence, every problem provided the friction necessary for growth, every enemy was a teacher in disguise, every obstacle was an invitation to discover greater capacity. You understand now that reality is consciousness exploring its own infinite potential through countless perspectives, each one adding unique notes to the eternal symphony of existence. Your role is to play your part with complete authenticity while never forgetting that you are also the composer, the conductor, the orchestra, and the audience experiencing the music. This is ultimate freedom, not the absence of limits, but the recognition that consciousness itself is limitless, expressing through infinite forms and experiences. You are simultaneously the drop and the ocean, the wave and the water, the note and the symphony, the individual and the absolute. The warrior's path completes itself when the seeker realizes they were always what they sought. The journey ends where it began, in the recognition of what was never actually lost, only temporarily forgotten. You are home, you have always been home, and now you know it. This knowing changes everything while changing nothing, because what you are has always been perfect, complete, and free. The dance continues, but now you dance as reality itself, celebrating its own infinite nature through the unique and precious vehicle of your human experience. This is the ultimate freedom, not escape from reality, but the joyful recognition that you are reality celebrating itself through every breath, every thought, every moment of this miraculous existence.